Hey everybody, it looks like we're in for a good fight, and I hope you will join me in this enormously important struggle, which has everything to do with justice and everything to do with the future of our country. As all of you, I expect, know, the President has just nominated Judge Kavanaugh to be his nominee for a position on the United States Supreme Court. And if, in fact, Kavanaugh is seated, and we're going to do everything we can to prevent that from happening, what you're going to see is major changes in policy in almost every area of American life. If you are a woman, or if you are an American who believes has the right to control her own body, and if you are one of the 70% of the American people who think that Roe v. Wade is a policy and a decision that should be maintained, worry about Judge Kavanaugh. You may recall that during the presidential campaign, Donald Trump said that he would only nominate people to the Supreme Court who are prepared to overturn Roe v. Wade. Well, I don't believe a lot of what Trump says. Much of what he says are lies. But I happen to believe that on this one, he is telling the truth. So if we believe that a woman has the right to control her own body and not the United States government, we should be very worried about this nomination. If we believe that there is something fundamentally wrong in the Supreme Court decision on campaign finance, which allows billionaires in Citizens United to spend as much money as they want to buy candidates, be worried about this decision. Because many of us who are fighting for campaign finance reform are going to have to run up against the Supreme Court. If you are worried about workers' rights and justice at the workplace and not having employers have all of the power, then worry about Judge Kavanaugh. If you're worried about climate change and the need to stand up to the fossil fuel industry and the need to protect our environment, worry about Judge Kavanaugh. If you are worried about civil liberties and privacy rights, if you think that it's somewhat absurd that we have had a Supreme Court says that people, billionaires, have the freedom to spend as much money as they want to buy elections, but we don't have the right to control our own privacy and keep people from stealing our information about our lives, worry about Judge Kavanaugh. Bottom line is, this is a very, very big deal. You got a 5-4 conservative bent right now on the Supreme Court. This guy will harden that 5-4 vote, make it even worse. Now, I'm not going to kid you. This is a very difficult fight that we're in. You all know that Republicans have 51 votes. Democratic caucus has 49. In other words, in order to defeat this nomination, we're going to have to hang on to every vote in the Democratic caucus, and we need to get 2 Republican votes. Can we do it? Yeah, I think we can. I really do. Because I think the American people on all of these issues, whether it is 70% opposition to overturning Roe versus Wade, whether it's workers' rights, whether it's environmental protection, whether it's consumer rights, the American people are on our side. But we're not going to win this unless we rally the American people state by state and force those people who are inclined to vote for Judge Kavanaugh, force them to make a very, very difficult decision. So we can win this, but it ain't going to be easy, and we need people to stand up and start fighting back. Lori, do we got any questions?
Sure. So David wants to know what this means for programs that help low-income people.
It will be devastating. You know, we have a Congress right now who wants to give, who has given, tax breaks to billionaires, wants to make massive cuts to food stamps, to education, to health care benefits, and they will be passing laws to try to do that. And what we will have is a Supreme Court, if Kavanaugh is in fact appointed, who will support those terrible, terrible decisions. Any other questions out there?
Sure. Jean wants to know how the American people can help fight.
All right. We can win this thing, and it is not going to be easy. First of all, we've got to do our best to make sure that every member of the Democratic caucus, 49 people, stands with us. And you know what? The truth is, when we explain to the American people what this is about, Roe versus Wade, workers' rights, pre-existing conditions will come before the Supreme Court. The American people overwhelmingly do not believe that somebody with diabetes or heart disease or cancer should be denied insurance coverage or have to pay so much that he or she could not afford it. That's not what the American people believe. But it is altogether likely that Judge Kavanaugh will side with 4 other conservative justices and allowing that to happen. So this is a very important decision in that regard.
So we have Faye who says, as a woman, I am terrified. And we are getting a lot of other questions from women who are concerned about what this means for them.
Well, what it means, look, let me repeat. I think Donald Trump is a pathological liar, and I believe very little of what he says. But on this issue, I think he is probably telling the truth. When he ran for president, you will all remember, he said, I will only appoint nominees who are prepared to vote to overturn Roe versus Wade. That's what he said, and I believe that is what this nomination is all about. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that in recent polls, some 70% of the American people do not believe we should overturn Roe v. Wade. They don't believe the insane proposition that a billionaire has the freedom to spend as much money as he wants to buy an election, but a woman does not have the freedom to protect and control her own body. That's not what the American people believe. And I think the Supreme Court has got it absolutely backwards. So be nervous. Be absolutely nervous about this. We are fighting right now to make sure that Roe v. Wade is not overturned and that women can continue to control their own bodies.
So as we've seen in the past, there have been a lot of nominees who have refused to sort of say any of their personal views during confirmation hearings. So Adam wants to know what you will be focusing on during the confirmation process.
My view may be a little bit different than others on this. I do not put as much stake as others do in these committee hearings because I think these guys will say whatever has to be said. And what they will say, my guess is, they will not be pinned down. Mr. Kavanaugh will not be pinned down and say, well, hey, count me in, I'm going to overturn Roe v. Wade. He will not say that unless I am very, very mistaken. He will talk about, well, I can't really talk about it, this, that, and the other thing. He will beat around the bush. He will not be clear. At the end of the day, we have to assume that on Roe v. Wade and on other issues, Trump has made a 100% political choice, that this guy will be part of the extreme right wing on the court. And our job right now is to rally the American people. It will be a difficult fight. I don't want to make anyone think that this is going to be, stopping this nomination is going to be easy. It will not be easy. But there are Republican senators all over this country who are not going to be very comfortable or happy having to defend a decision in which they appoint a justice who will be working in absolute opposition to what the American people want, whether it is women's health, whether it's health care and pre-existing conditions, whether it is campaign finance reform and Citizens United. This is not, if you're a Republican out there, it's not all that comfortable. And our job is to build that pressure, to make it so that after a lot of thought, some of these Republicans can say, you know what, this is not a good vote. I'm going to vote no. Maybe one more year.
Okay, so it's we have a lot of people asking if there's any hope.
And the answer is, honestly, there is. Okay? I am not going to kid anybody and tell you that this struggle is not going to be a very, very difficult one. It will be. They have the votes. Our job is to make sure that every member of the Democratic caucus stays with us on this and to get a couple of Republicans. Can we do that? We can. If you are a Republican senator in a state where your voters support a woman's right to choose, you know what? You can say whatever you want to say. You're going to be uncomfortable about having to vote for this justice. Our job is to make it clear to every person in that state what is at stake here. What are the implications of this Supreme Court nominee and a hard 5-4 right-wing control over the United States Supreme Court? So it is not going to be easy. I can tell you I will be traveling around this country, doing everything that I can to rally the American people and force senators to explain to their constituents why they think this nominee is a good choice. And I think some of them are going to be very reluctant to do that. So to answer that question, it will be a tough fight. I am not kidding anybody. I think we start off as the underdog in this. But if the question is, do I think we can win it? Yeah, I do think so. It's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of grassroots organizing, a lot of mobilization, but I think we can. So, let me just conclude by saying what I think everybody knows. This is a very, very big deal. If Kavanaugh is in fact appointed, you will have a hard right majority in the United States Supreme Court, and a majority that might last for a number of years and be in a position to do absolutely horrendous damage to this country. So we're in the fight of our lives here. Let's stand up. Let's do everything that we can. And I think if we are smart, if we work hard, I think we can stop this. Look forward to working with you all. Thank you.